could XPR hypothetically become the next ZBCN? I don't see why that wouldn't be the case, even though nothing I say is financial advice. And this goes beyond me thinking that, you know what, XPR could hypothetically go to the price of 25 cents during this board. It goes beyond that because we got to think about this, right? ZBCN had a very amazing pop. And I've been talking about ZBCN for quite a while, actually, but I've also been talking about XPR. And think about this, right? When I first started talking about ZBCN, aka ZBIC, right, the ZBIC network, ZBCN and XPR at that time were kind of viewed as pretty much kind of like somewhat similar in the sense that they thought, oh, it was either XPR or ZBCN. But then now ZBCN has overtaken XPR and has kind of become the premier choice between the two, according to many people. But I don't think it's all doom and gloom because the way to take a look at it is that ZBCN is having its time as of right now. And if the market does a lot better, we could see it have maybe a better time. But then XPR, hypothetically, in my opinion, could also have its time too. Because not too long ago, again, the attention when it comes to XPR, when it comes to ZBCN, when compared to, I should say, it was kind of the same. But then it doesn't mean that XPR can't achieve that if, let's say, the market conditions were suitable for it, and not to mention if there's hype and attention for something like XPR. Because just think about this. The XPR network, and when it comes to ZBIC, very similar. They're focused on global trade and finance, focused on the payments market. Again, it's basically kind of like a carbon copy, I would say, of like Ripple or Stellar. Of course, Ripple, aka XRP, and Stellar, aka XLM. So when it comes to ZBIC, it's not too different than something like XPR, but then it just had a lot of attention. You know what I mean? XPR hasn't had that attention yet. And we got to think about this. When it comes to the naming of XPR, it's so similar to XRP. It's literally the same, letters, but then it just kind of shifted around. But then in my opinion, man, when it comes to something like ZBCN, I saw what it did. And we can see as of right now what it did because it's still doing very well. Why can't XPR achieve somewhat a glimpse of that, Think about this, right? Now, ZBCN has grown so much to the point that the market cap is give or take around $500 million. XPR is still 100 million. XPR has done very well compared to what it once was in the past. But then again, ZBCN has overtaken it. But I don't see why XPR can't kind of achieve some of that, I would say attention as well. But it's just a waiting game, really, because even though I believe in ZBCN, it woke up when it wanted to wake up, right? I didn't demand it to do that. I couldn't predict the exact moment. I was just believing in it, and then it went up. You know what I mean? So when it comes to XPR, again, when people like to ask me, oh, when is the exact time it's going to pump? I don't know. I can't say that because I can't tell the future. Much like ZBCN, I believed in it, but then I didn't know the exact moment in time it was going to pump. But then it's doing it as of right now. When it comes to XPR, when will it pump? We just don't know in a massive way, at least, right? There's no way to exactly tell the future. But then we can at least take a look at some clues historically speaking. Because usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. Based off the last Bitcoin halving event that happened in April of 2024, that's around October this year. So that may not be too much time, at least historically speaking. Again, though, there's no exact way to tell. But the way to take a look at it is this. In my opinion, when we view, cryptocurrencies, right, at least historically, usually we do see an altcoin season, a fully fifth gear type of altcoin season, in my opinion. So yes, as of right now, it's Bitcoin's time, but would it not be altcoins' time, moving forward? Again, we'll have to wait and see, but I don't see why it wouldn't be a good time for altcoins moving forward because if let's say that Bitcoin dominance drops and we see a lot of that volume flow into something like altcoins, I don't think it's such a bad thing. And as the old saying goes, right, a high tide raises all ships. I think if the altcoin space does very well, I think, typically a good project, maybe like XPR could go along with the ride. Some people like to tell me, oh, there's too much competition now. There's this project launching and this type of stuff. I get it. There's a bunch of launch pads out there, so it's very easy to launch meme coins. But again, those are meme coins typically, or typically also projects that aren't really that viable. They don't really make it in a sense that they never really get listed on any sort of major exchange. They don't have any sort of traction. So yes, there's way more projects as of right now when compared to 2021. There's so many projects launching every day, it feels like, at least to me, at least in terms of the analogy. But then it doesn't mean that there's drastically way more good competitors. And again, within the space of like global trade and finance and the payments market, again, there's pretty much only like, 7 good projects within this space, but if we remove like the market leaders like XLM and XRP, that's pretty much down to 5 solid options. When we think about this space, right? These type of projects that are focused on global trade and finance, the payments market, there's not that many in the grand scheme of things, at least in my perspective, because of course we have XRP and XLM. Nothing's ever defeating that, right? Within this space, they're the number 1 and number 2. Number 3 and number 4 is like, XCN or something like XDC. Now, of course, that kind of leaves the 5th and 6th place, right? Initially, I thought like it was kind of a competition between ZBCN and XPR, but now clearly something like ZBCN, in my opinion, is number 5. But again, that makes XPR number 6. And then number 7, I would say Swiftcoin. But then really beyond that, not many people can name 10, 15 projects. We're not talking about the NFT space, the DeFi space, blockchain gaming, where there's like 20 or 30 viable competitors. We're not talking about that. So we got to think about that. It's like 5 solid options in a very massive, market, which people do believe the payment, and global trade and finance market is. Is that a lot? Is there 500? Is there 5,000? No, I don't think so in terms of the viable ones. So then, yes, there's more competitors for meme coins, right? For maybe blockchain gaming, NFTs and whatnot. But then there's not too much competition here, at least in theory. But even besides that, XPR at the price of 25 cents, it wouldn't be too ridiculous, because if it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $7 billion, around a 67x from here. Keep in mind, ZBCN, going to the price of 10 cents, which is my hypothetical price target for it, at that point, the market cap would be give or take around 8 billion, slightly less than that actually, but I'm just saying, so it's not too far off as to what I think XPR could achieve. And again, the reason why this prediction is so similar in a sense is because when I first believed in XPR and ZBCN, they were kind of even a little bit. So I thought that, hey, you know what, they could maybe become like, somewhat similar during a fully fledged burn, but then again, ZBCN has overtaken it. So during a fully fledged burn, could XPR catch up? I think so, maybe, because we know that people usually move in trends. They like one thing, they move on to the next, or they still like this one thing and then they believe in the other one too, right? XPR doesn't have to go down in order for a lot of attention to come into XLM. You know what I mean? Much like in the case of ZBCN, it's not like XRP is having a major pullback, so people believe in ZBCN. No, that's not the case. So does ZBCN have to go down for XPR to go up? No, it does not, in my opinion. And when people like to say, could XPR hypothetically become the next ZBCN? I don't see why not, in theory. Only time will tell though. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace. Bye.